the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Invocation by Word of Life Church. All right, not here. We'll start with the roll call.
Sabers.
Here.
Goldammer.
Here.
Dosher. McCardle.
Here.
Barrington.
Here.
Bathke.
Here.
Sharks. Here. Smith.
Here.
And we have a quorum. We're going to start with the approval of consent agenda items. Items appearing on the consent agenda may be removed by the city council member for discussion at the beginning of the formal agenda items.
Move to approve.
Got a motion to approve by Mr. Goldhammer. Second by Mr. McCardle. Any further discussion? Did you guys read it a little bit? Okay, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Oh, yeah, sorry. I was going to write that down. Roll call, please.
Barrington.
Aye.
Bathke.
Aye.
Sharks. Smith.
Aye.
Sabers.
Aye.
Goldammer.
Aye.
Dosher. McCardle.
All right, motion carries. Citizens input. If you need to address the mayor and members of city council on an item that was not on the agenda, excluding personnel items, please come forward to the podium and state your name and your concern. Presentations are limited to 3 minutes. Items will be considered, but no action will be taken at this time. Does anyone wish to speak to the council? Okay. Seeing none, we'll move on to the next one. Mayor and city council discussion items. Does anyone on the council wish to speak? I don't have anything this week. All right, sounds good. Next one, Board of Adjustment. Entertain a motion for the city council to recess and sit as the Board of Adjustment.
Second.
Motion by Mrs. Charks, second by Mr. Goldhammer. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Hearing and action on application of Josh Frost conditional use permit. Josh Frost has applied for a conditional use permit for outside storage located at 24994 406th Avenue, legally described as shown on the agenda. Mr. Jenigas.
Mr. Mayor and Council, I received tonight the items he requested from the applicant for his plan written on paper for what he's going to do. This is just the outside storage portion of it. I've not received any other comments from any neighbors around. You have all those in front of you already. The applicant's here that he can explain what it is he'd like to do for his outside storage. And I can answer any questions that you have. Outside storage is just for his personal stuff, no business, nothing to do with automotive repair. It's just outside storage of his stuff. Josh?
I'm Josh Frost. Any questions?
I have a question, please. You say under outside storage that your plan is to finish cold storage building and get stuff put in there. When do you plan to have that done?
I plan on doing that here, hopefully before winter. I'd like to have it all in there.
Hopefully, or when do you plan to do it?
I'm working on it now.
When do you plan on having it done?
I'll have it done by then, end of the month. I don't have much left on it.
And my next question, that you were going to block or park semis to block the view rather than a fence. I thought we had been talking to the Planning and Zoning Commission about a fence for the last 2 months.
I just
What
don't.
happened to that plan?
I just don't see how a 10-foot fence is gonna do anything there. I mean, it's not gonna
I
block.
think one of the reasons that the Planning and Zoning Commission allowed you to continue on because you were talking about putting up a
I
fence.
mean, if a fence is what I gotta put up, I mean, I will, but, I mean,
You were to come to us with your plan of what you were going to do and when. And now your latest plan is to park semis to block the view.
well, I'll put up a fence if that's what you guys want. I mean, a 10-foot fence isn't gonna do nothing, really.
You should have said that 2 months ago.
I did.
No, you didn't say anything. You even in the last meeting showed us how you had holes and telephone poles lined up to go in those holes to put your fence up on. That's a new idea now, huh?
Well,
That's scrap?
what's that?
Is that plan scrap?
Are you still planning on doing that fence, is what he's asking?
I'll do whatever you guys want.
That wasn't my
If that-
question.
But, yeah, I'll do it.
Josh, so I read somewhere in the material that you feel like everyone is against you. And that certainly isn't the case. We're not against you. But there are certain standards that we have to have met. You're sitting in an area where you have residents, nice homes. And so it's important, I mean, if it were my home, I would not want to have, all of these vehicles and, you have to admit, it looks a little bit like a junkyard or a, okay, so
I've
I just
cleaned
want
up
to
a lot
clarify
of
that.
them.
So let me just ask you this. So it's been 2 weeks again. Now we were here 2 weeks ago and we asked for the sign of progress. Tell us what your progress has been since our last meeting. And do you have any pictures that show
I
us?
don't have any pictures with me, no. But I've cleaned up a lot of that bottom down there. I mean, I got another load ready to go out, and then there's probably another half a load that I'm gonna just take out and throw away, so that way it's cleaned up. I mean,
So I'm with Mr. Dosher about these semis, using the semis as your thing that you're going to block the line of sight for your neighbors, because once again, a semi is not something that's attractive to look at. So,
it's a semi-trailer, not a semi.
okay, a semi-trailer, regardless, it's the same thing. I wouldn't want a semi-trailer blocking my view either. So my question is, what if we said, no, you can't park, how many were there, 10
No,
semi-trailers?
5?
5? So what if we say, no, that's not acceptable? Then what? And let me just ask, are you operating your business currently?
Not at that location.
Okay, you're doing it somewhere else.
We switched locations.
Okay, so this is just kind of,
It's personal.
this is personal?
Yep.
Okay. So if we say no about the semi-trailers, then do you have another place you can take them?
I suppose I'll do what I did with everything else, throw them away.
I agree with Councilman Sharks there, Josh. This has been ongoing. You and I had a conversation on a Sunday afternoon about the semi-trailers, and I told you that wasn't going to work for me because I wouldn't want to look at them, and I don't know anybody that would. And I have a little bit of a concern about all of I've been out there, it does look a lot like a junkyard. And I shared with Councilman McCardle before the meeting, brings me back to the fire department being called out here. And I don't know if Mitchell's got called because it was in Hanson County where we have kind of the same situation with a lot of clutter. It's hard to put out clutter, especially when it's that dry. And we have to consider your neighbors' public safety. If there's barrels of gas and stuff, if you're taking these cars and junking them out, I'm assuming you're pulling the gas out because they don't want you to take that to the junkyard. Is that fair to say that?
There's none of that down there.
Okay. I look at the hazard for a fire to,
I mean, I am
the
on the
neighbors.
fire department. I'm not gonna have stuff that is a hazard. I mean,
I'm not gonna go along with it because I wouldn't want to have to look at that at my house. I know that. And I think we're being pretty fair with you. And if you've made these
what goes with,
adjustments and taking care of the stuff, you should really bring those pictures in so we can see it. That you're making an effort, and then, we could readjust at that point, but I can't go along with Josh.
Yeah, and I read the planning and zoning report, and I think Mr. Kiner, what I read was that he said he would be amenable if you built this fence, but didn't say anything. What?
I mean, I'll put up that 10-foot fence. I just thought semi-trailers there would be better. I mean, with the wind and stuff, I mean, material-wise, it'd last longer. I mean, but, I mean,
But you'd have to get rid of those semi-trailers there.
whatever, I'll get rid of them. What about the Kiners with their pile of tires down there that's 60-foot wide and 80-foot long and as high as the skid loader will reach?
I don't know anything about that.
I would recommend you take that to the county, because that's where we're at here.
Well,
Who's going to police it?
We're working with them on that already.
Good.
We have an overhead view of that, and I don't see that on the Kiner property, but.
Couple weeks, he said, you were cleaning it up. I got a picture here from a couple weeks ago. Has a lot been done since this picture was taken 2 weeks ago?
Yeah,
And do you have new pictures of what's been done?
I don't have any with me tonight. I can get you some though.
Because he gave me a before and after picture 2 weeks ago, and I had to ask which one was the before and which one was the after. And then I'm being a smartass, it's just, I could not tell.
And I think the frustrating thing for us at this point is that this was the meeting to have a firm plan of what the fence material was going to be, what we were going to do with the fence, and put that up. And now we're talking about something completely different. And honestly, if you would have talked about trailers 2 weeks ago, I think we would have just straight up denied you, and that we wouldn't have even offered you this continuance.
I guess
So-
I kind of got told that if we moved locations, we wouldn't need a conditional use permit for here until I went to cancel it, and then last week, and they said, need it in writing, and so I did that, and then I need this conditional use permit for my personal. So I'm confused.
Justin, can you help us out a little bit there?
I guess I wasn't directly involved in those conversations, but my understanding of the situation as it sits is they're not going to be doing the towing and automotive business out of there, but he would still need the conditional use permit to do this personal outside storage. So we're talking about two separate issues here. You've got 9A that you're considering right now, which is the outside storage component. And from what it sounds like is he's describing more of the 9B situation, which was the automotive sales and repair stuff. I'm sure Mark and Joe, I don't know who had the direct conversations with him, but
Yeah, Josh, I'm all in favor of making sure that you have an opportunity to make an honest living, but to just store all of this junk and debris and stuff, I can't agree to approve that as, if that's what we're talking about here, is just a place to store your stuff, outside storage, to get stuff. I mean, that's even what you call it, that I just, I can't support this, I'm sorry. And it's not personal, it's just that
That's fine,
we
huh?
have, we have to abide by a certain standard, and this isn't meeting it.
Okay?
I also think that if, as you're working with Mark or whoever it would be when you're cleaning up the property, if you were to build the fence and make those changes and then come back and ask after the changes have been made to the property and actually finished, I think that would be something I would at least consider to look at. But now I think it's a bridge too far for me personally that we keep asking for these things, and I just don't see them coming to fruition at this point.
All righty.
So I'll entertain a motion from anyone.
I'll move to deny.
Second.
Got a motion from Mr. Goldhammer to deny and a second by Mrs. Charks. Any further discussion? Does anyone else in the audience wish to speak on this? Okay, all those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right. Hearing and action on the application for Josh Frost conditional use permit. Josh Frost has applied for a conditional use permit for automotive sales, repair, parts, and detailing located at 24994 406th Avenue, legally described as shown on the agenda. Mr. Jenigas.
Mr. Mayor, Council, he still would like the towing, Mitchell Towing and Recovery has been moved to a different location. That's true. he would still like to do some repair work at his shop out there, because he's got a hoist, he can do some oil changes, things like that. So he still wants to turn a wrench every so often for a couple of vehicles, not only having 3 or 4 cars out there at a time. So that still requires a conditional use for this area as well. But the towing business isn't going to be at this location. I can answer any questions that you have, and Josh walked out, I guess.
Well, we're kind of back at square one, because when he talks about this, he talks about if there were more than one car, they would get parked behind the fence, which he just told us he wasn't intending on building anymore. Or, so is that an existing fence?
Thought that they put that, I thought they put that up at the front of the building.
Yeah, but I believe based on the drawing that he gave us, it would be by the tree line, right where the text box is on that picture is where he plans to park cars.
I feel like there's 2 different fences
Yeah,
that we're
there are
talking about.
different
One on the
fences.
property line and then one in the center of the property.
Yep.
The one in the center's been completed, does that sound correct, or is that what you just said?
No, it's the one up front. Is there another picture below that one with,
Yeah.
on that same page? This is the shop that he's doing business at. And I think they put the fence up here. It's not a full all the way across, but I thought they were gonna put up some panels there, then be able to park vehicles behind that.
And then the semi-trailers they were talking about here, a lot of people from the other neighbors, is that correct? Yeah. Because this is rotated.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
It was gonna be there, and they were talking about a fence coming along here as well. But they were doing that one already.
Is his residence out there?
Yes.
Where's his house? That's his house.
So I'd just like to say, I did ask it when they first came up here, you guys give him a chance to make this right and pass it. And I want to thank you, because I think you guys have done a great job at giving him an opportunity to come up with a plan. And if the plan doesn't meet your expectations, I think it's more than fair for the decision that you guys made. So it's just nice to see a good opportunity, at least. Someone has a chance to have the opportunity.
I guess one other thing to keep in mind, sorry, Tim. But keep in mind that this is a conditional use permit application, so if there were conditions that you wanted to attach to that portion of it, such as only having a certain number of vehicles there, or that they be placed behind a fence, or if you want to require a fence, those are all conditions that you could put in place if you want to, but it's up to the council or the Board of Adjustment as to.
Could one of the conditions be that all of the other things have been removed?
As far as the outside storage items, yes, I think you could certainly require that.
So who's going to enforce that then?
Well, if it's a condition to this, then he wouldn't be able to conduct any of the permitted activities until those items were, until he's in compliance with the conditions.
So he comes in compliance and he falls out of compliance. Who's the fallback on, us or the county?
Us.
It would be us, as far as this activity goes. But as to eventually removing those materials and things like that, then I don't know that we'd necessarily be able to address it from the zoning side unless we're independently calling it, he's conducting outside storage and he doesn't have a permitted use for it, so.
I was hoping that he wouldn't have taken off because we got to ask him a couple questions. And one of the things we can maybe consider, and we've done this in the past, but not very often, is we would put a timetable and have him come back 6 months or a year, or we see progress, and the neighbors can come in and give us their input to see if the conditions that we put on there, were they satisfied and so forth. So that's something I think that would be, if we end up considering this, I would think we'd want to put that in as a possibility of voting.
Timetable on here. When he came up here, do you remember, Mark? A couple months ago.
Yeah, it started in the end of August.
Couple months.
Does it make sense to go to those neighbors and ask them what conditions under realistic terms they would accept us approving it? 'Cause I know I've talked to Denny at the soybean plant one day, and he's not exactly on board with any of it. And then the trailer deal really upset him. He said, so I think it would make sense then, and you've dealt with this a lot, Mark. Appreciate your patience with it, but I think it would make sense if you could sit with those neighbors somehow, if they're willing, to give you a little bit of what their parameters would be to accept it. Otherwise, we're just wasting our time.
Denny did say at planning and zoning, he was okay with the business. He was fine with him having a business there. He just wasn't okay with everything else that was out there.
Right. That's the way he stated it.
Yep.
I want to see, Josh is doing a lot of things that nobody wants to do. He really is. Just some real crappy work that nobody wants to do it, and he does it, and he does a good job at it. He cleans up tree lines. He does a great job at it. But I would not, as a neighbor, want to look at that either. And that's how I'm looking at it. Not that I want to put him out of business. I'd love to see him stay in business.
To that end, I'm going to make a motion that we approve with the following conditions, that he create a fenced-in area that will hold no more than 5 cars at any given time to be worked on, and he fall in compliance with outside storage.
Tim, would there be a timetable on the cleanup of the outside storage area?
As I understand it, he wouldn't be able to begin work until the compliance of the outside storage.
I'll second your motion for additional discussion.
And I guess one other thing before you get to a vote or anything, but based off the plan that Josh brought in tonight, he talked about a cold storage building, moving things into that. It's possible that once he does that and things aren't being stored outside anymore, that he would not need a conditional use for outside storage because he's not storing things outside. So it just kind of, but again, I think with your motion, Tim, that should cover it, because if he moves things into a building and doesn't, he's not violating the outside storage zoning provisions, so.
The definition of outside storage is the keeping of in an unroofed area of any goods, junk, material, or merchandise in the same place for more than 1 month. And again, that is personal stuff. It's not from any business to bring any of that stuff, because that'd be outside commercial storage, and that's not permitted or conditional use in this zone at all.
And so my hope is that, 1, it will motivate him to clean the outside storage that much faster. 2, it permits him the ability to conduct some business at a facility adjacent to his property while still maintaining the things that I think his neighbors would want, or at least I personally would want if I was his neighbor. And so that's kind of where I came up with those conditions.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Just to clarify your motion and your second, that can he operate his oil change mechanic business from now going forward, or once he gets that outside storage cleaned up, then he can start up working on cars again?
My intent would be that the permit wouldn't go into effect until he effectively cleans up the outside storage area.
Okay, to clarify. I'm just wanted to make sure that that was the case. I could support that, but if he was allowed to work on cars and do repair work, I'm just so busy I can't get to that outside storage, but I'm going to get to it. I'm going to get to it. I'll do it. And so we've heard that. So I support that.
And that's the reason why I'll support you too, Tim, on that is, I don't know if we would probably be sitting here if we didn't have the outside storage problem. If he was operating his business and doing it in a proper way with 5 to 10 cars and doing it, making it, look as professional as it can with that type of business going on. I don't think we'd be sitting here and see all the other stuff that's causing a major issue, and we need to separate those two. And I think, by the way, your motion you put in play is a good way to separate it, get him to get that outside storage cleaned up, and this may make him do it a lot quicker, like you mentioned, and he can continue to operate and have an income for what things that he needs. So I'm all in favor of helping you out on that.
So with the 5 vehicles, which I think is a good number, if by chance somewhere along the line he does exceed that, or the neighbors, aren't comfortable and they come in, Justin, do we have the ability to pull this conditional use permit if once we give it to him, and then all of a sudden the conditions aren't met, so that we can meet again to say that you no longer have this?
I believe the procedure at that point would be that he's not meeting the conditions. We'd likely send him a cease and desist at that time.
Okay.
So just to clarify, your motion is once he meets these conditions, he can start operating a business whenever. So if he wants it bad enough, he can go out and he can start. Correct. Okay. All right, anyone in the audience wish to discuss this? Okay. All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign? Aye. Okay, motion carries. Action to set the date for Board of Adjustment hearing 11-18-24. Kyle Zacher has applied for a variance permit for a maximum height of an accessory building of 30 foot versus 22 foot to add an existing garage and creating a mezzanine in the new portion of the garage with enough room under the mezzanine for the garage doors to open. Located at 1420 East Hanson Avenue, legally described as shown on the agenda. Mr. Janigas.
Just setting the date.
Oh, just setting the date. Okay. Okay. Got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Okay, opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Reconvene as City Council. Entertain a motion for the Board of Adjustment to adjourn and the City Council to reconvene in regular session.
Second.
A motion and Mr. Barrington, a second by Mr. McCardle. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, motion carries. Number 11, award bid for Hayland, number 2025-05. Mr. Schrader.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, Council. The bids were open on October 16th at 1:30 in City Hall Council Chambers. 2 bids were received, with the high bid being from Brad Barcher for $2,691.15 per year, or $168.20 per acre for 16 acres. The bid tabulation is attached for your information. Staff does recommend approving the bid to Brad Barcher. There is information in the staff report regarding the previous 3-year lease, which that was at $101 per acre, which previously was 23 acres. We had to reduce some of this area for the golf course expansion and the sidewalk trail. And I can answer any questions you may have.
Motion approved the high bid.
Motion by Mr. Sabers.
Second.
Second by Mr. Bethke. Any further discussion?
Joe, will there be any issue with construction coming in to put in the path, or is that already in?
We've already accounted for that,
Okay. Thank
that area.
Okay, anyone else? Anyone in the audience wish to speak on this? Okay, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
you. Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Award quote for South Wastewater Treatment Facility Building. Mr. Schrader.
Yep, Mr. Mayor, Council. The city is adding approximately 14-foot by 38-foot building at the South Wastewater Treatment Plant that will provide an office, lab, break room, storage, and restrooms for that facility. The quote requested did not include transportation or foundation. Quotes were requested from 4 companies, with the low bid being from Custom Touch Homes, LLC, for $53,061.32. And staff does recommend awarding the project to Custom Touch Homes, and I can answer any questions you may have.
Motion by Mr. McCardle.
Second.
Second by Mr. Goldhammer. Any further discussion? Anyone in the audience wish to speak on this?
Joe, what do you expect the total cost to be if those items are not included?
So the foundation work probably will be around $15,000 to set. It's a modular home, so it will be brought in on a trailer. There will be piers put down, and it will be strapped down to that.
Anything else? Okay. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
I'll abstain.
One abstention. Motion carries. Action to approve release of easement in Nelson's addition. Mr. Schrader.
Yep, Mr. Mayor, Council. This is requested down in the Kippis Cove area. There's an existing 10-foot easement along the property line. There currently are no city utilities in that location, so we are recommending release of those easements. And we recommend council approval and grant authorization for the mayor to sign, and I can answer any questions you may have.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Mrs. Sharks, and second by Mr. Smith. Any further discussion? One abstention. Anyone in the audience wish to speak on this? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Action to approve easement within alleyway for 207 West 11th Avenue. Mr. Schrader.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, Council. Lloyd and Jane Morrison, who own 207 West 11th Avenue, has requested an easement to facilitate the sale of the property. It was determined that their garage adjacent to the alley is approximately 2.1 feet into the alley right-of-way. The easement shall be terminated immediately if the structure falls into disrepair, require reconstruction, be removed, or the encroachment exceeds the approximate 2.1 feet. The owner of the property would also be responsible for any right-of-way repairs resulting from the encroachment. Staff does recommend City Council approval on this item and the previous. Mr. Johnson and Mr. Jenigas were both heavily involved in this process. I can answer any questions you may have.
Move to approve.
Motion by Mr. Sharks, second by Mr. Barrington. Any further discussion? Anyone in the audience want to speak on this? All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Action to approve Agreement A 2024-43 testing services for South Wastewater Treatment Plant Phase 2 Schedule A with Geotech. Mr. Schrader.
Yep, Mr. Mayor, Council. This agreement is with Geotech for our South Wastewater Treatment Facility for testing services. They will provide earthwork excavation, observation, and testing, along with certified concrete testing for the project. The fee is not to exceed $70,350. Staff does recommend council approve the agreement with Geotech. I can answer any questions you have.
Move to approve.
Motion by Mr. Goldhammer,
Second.
second by Mrs. Jerks. Any further discussion? Would anyone in the audience like to speak on this? Okay, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Approve Agreement A 2024-44, partial alley closure joining 6th and 7th between Main and Raleigh with confluence. Mr. Schrader.
Yep, Mr. Mayor, Council. As you can see on the screen, this location is located half a block to the west of where we currently are, back behind the Mercantile and Cherry Bees area. We did have a property owner adjacent to this alley express safety concerns, which included vehicle traffic going through the alley, conflicting with pedestrian access to the parking lots with those businesses. There's currently a stop sign with blinking light and pedestrian sign in the alley on the be the north side of the alley for southbound traffic. That is a one-way alley southbound. We did reach out to Confluence, a landscape architect who worked on the Corn Palace Plaza and the Main Street streetscape designs to provide us a preliminary plan for what closing that alley may look like. and that's at a cost of a total of $9,000. That would include concept planning and 3D site illustrations. Staff does recommend approval to look at the possibilities of what closing that alley may look like, and I can answer any questions you may have.
Oh, what's the negative if there is some of closing down?
So when it was first brought to me, it was asked if we could include more signage or something to slow people down. With the signs that we already have in that alley, I don't believe that adding additional signage would help. We did talk about the potential of a speed bump. Obviously, speed bumps don't work good during the winter with snow removal. It was actually a Public Works idea to actually look at closing that alley. And it felt like it made sense, the possibility to close the alley with how the parking lots are laid out. They can function independently of the two. There were concerns of deliveries, and we met with, I want to say, all or at least a high majority of the businesses that are in that area. They said that there's a possibility that they could work through their business deliveries, their garbage pickup, and we'd want to keep them heavily involved through this process from start to finish to see if there even is a plan that they would consider acceptable.
I think it's an opportunity to also kind of bridge that parking lot area to the Corn Palace area. A lot of people coming for either tourism or games or parking over there, coming across the street, make it feel like it's one area kind of connected.
And one of the things we called Joe, or maybe I just emailed him, but I asked about this, and one of the things that really surprised me is that there's a 0 setback from an alley to a door. So literally, a person could walk out of that business and a car could be right there and there's no setback at all for them. So, I mean, I am sensitive to the businesses that use that alley, and I wish that there was another alternative, but I do think that for the sake of safety, seems like it might be something that we need to do, because I think there's a lot of people that walk through there.
One of the business owners there has a video of several people coming down that intersection or the alley where they're not even stopping at the sign, and they're going really fast down that alley. So there is concern about people walking out of that door or walking and not seeing the traffic coming.
Well, they wouldn't be able to in time because there's 0 setback. So yeah, I think that's a hazard.
Also, that little gateway coming from that plaza that goes, so there's 2 locations, coming from the plaza. So if you're leaving the Corn Palace and you go under there too, you're in danger.
I understand the safety, and I kind of drove that a couple times this weekend, and a block south of there, they come out of the garage or out of their building onto the sidewalk, and there's dumpsters there, which makes, they're all very dangerous, it looks like to me.
They really are.
Yeah, and
Yeah, you go
I
down
mean,
by Har Sports Shop and the old Toggery, and I mean, it's the same thing.
yeah, their doors got to open in or they get taken off. I don't know how they get by that, but that's not my deal. But no, I disagree. I agree that this is dangerous, but I've also drove the rest of it, and it's and plus there's dumpsters in the alley, so the alley gets really, really narrow.
I guess I'd be in favor of closing it for that, what you guys have all said. I've visited with Christy and Jeremy about, but I would be a little leery about sticking a pile of money into it with whatever design they come up with. I'd be more apt to put a nice gate on each end, so if we had to open it for access, we could. And maybe that's where they're going with this, I don't know, but I don't want to see a bunch of landscaping and placed pheasant like we have in front of the chamber now. I mean, I don't want to see that.
And I think what this allows us to is to look at, the most simplest option to, hey, if you want to get crazy, you could potentially do this. Eventually, there will be a group that works on this, and there will be a recommendation brought to council to move forward with. We initially talked about bollards that are removable, similar to what's out in the plaza over here. So that way, during the winter months, if you wanted to, you could take them out and do snow removal. I think if it was a more permanent solution, we would talk with the chamber who does snow removal in that plaza area between that comes out towards the Corn Palace, and ask if they would remove the snow if we were to close that. So I think and the only reason, like Mr. Saber said, is, the other alleys have that, the same circumstance. And the only thing I think that is different in this location is how the buildings lay out and how the parking lots can function separately between the two. And it is a destination for our city, being the Corn Palace, as a public entity. So I feel like this isn't just for these businesses. This is city-oriented, that kind of could potentially tie this whole area together and be inviting to an area that the first thing you see is the Corn Palace. That's why I thought it was worth bringing to council to discuss.
I think one of my only, feelings about this, I think it's a great idea to close it, but I think that some painted barricades might do the trick just as well as hiring a landscape designer. And so I almost would prefer to see if we couldn't use those funds to maybe create murals with the barricades. I don't know that, I feel like if we go to a design artist, what he's going to say is, these are your barricade choices. Which one do you like the best? But I don't know. Like you said, this is a good way to find that out, I guess. But for $9,000, if the advice is you should put up some barricades, I'm going to feel real sheepish about spending $9,000 to get that advice.
Yeah, and I think I would just add in, I don't think that you'd be spending the $9,000 for just barricades. I think that's if you wanted to do a larger project to create more of an entrance into that courtyard area in the Corn Palace itself. If all council wants to do is add bollards, obviously that's something we wouldn't need to hire someone to do. But this is looking at a bigger project than that.
I think if we just shut the alley down, we don't need to put a bunch of money in it also. I mean, shut it down. If we're going to shut it down, shut it down.
And I like Mike's idea with the gates, so you never know if and when you ever do need access there, even if it's like fire.
Yeah.
You know,
Look at the way they're parked there now, that white car, and I don't know what the chamber, if they get semis or not, but I drive a truck, that's about impossible to make that turn. We may lose a parking spot over it. Because of the one-way out.
I think a fence that would come out from where the Mercantile's fence is to the watering hole and then down along the edge of the parking lot to the underneath the pergola of the courtyard. I don't know if those are the right terms, but would be a good way to close out the lot, if you understand what I'm saying.
So the first step, Joe, is if we agreed to have you put something together and come back. So we don't have to settle in on exactly what it looks like tonight. You can bring us a couple options, or is that, but I'm hearing too, and I agree, I don't think we need to hire an architect for this project. I think you guys could put something together that would be agreeable for us.
Sure. Oh, I can definitely do that. I can put something together. And Mike, I'm not an artist, but I do know how to do a closure.
I'll move to approve.
Second.
No, you would not be then. The action was for hiring of the landscape architect for the design.
You would want to make a motion to close the alley, I think.
Okay.
Can we just motion to?
Why don't we ask?
We didn't have the alley closure on the agenda. This
Right.
was just the agreement for design services.
Okay.
So
Oh,
we
I
will
gotcha.
bring something back to a
Right.
future agenda.
Okay.
Yep.
So I will entertain a new motion. No? Or take the same one and we vote it down?
Yeah.
Or whatever you guys want to, whatever you choose, I suppose. Okay,
Well, you've got the motion to approve, so you can vote on that, and if it gets denied, it gets denied.
we got a motion by Mr. Smith, and I think a motion, second by Mr. Shabers.
I just want to make sure you realize you're voting on the, the motion
Okay.
for the landscape architect.
Okay, any further discussion? Does anyone in the audience wish to speak on any of this? Come on up.
Hi, Jeremy Gunkel here. I wanted to thank you guys for entertaining the option of this
this closure. You know, it seems like every week we have somebody that's going to get almost hit. The other week, it was my 22-year-old son walking out of there with a deal, and we got it on video and we sent it to him. And we're not trying to be, we originally came up with just, hey, we need better signage, because this is getting up, because nobody stops. Absolutely. And even if they go through there, you also have the capability of people getting hit when they walk through the tunnel deal. They're walking through there, there's no way to see, they come through. And actually, after talking to Joe, even Lori Cooper, walking out of the back street of their office, the building of the chamber, she almost got hit when opening the door. So I think this allows us to slow traffic all around the whole deal. Now, as far as who pays for what, you talked about the fence. With the cooks, they have their garbages tucked back in there. If we have these barricades, whatever, that's harmed with garbage, how they can collect the garbage. And we were offering to take their garbage and kind of make a nice enclosed little area where our fences are at, right there, to make it a little better, more appealing. First of all, it hides the garbages and actually our grease trap, or our grease container, and then, try to make it easy to work for everybody. So, but I do appreciate the city, when we first called and said, hey, we need better signage, there was actually some of the bushes that are growing out like 4 feet into the alleyway. I mean, they were there right away, like the next day, doing what they could to make it better. So it is a concern. As far as money, maybe it's one of the deals where we block it off, the gates or barricades, and then leave it up to maybe some of us business owners to make it look nicer or whatever it may be. So willing to cooperate with you guys and see if we can make something happen, so.
Yeah, and just to be clear, when I was talking about money, I was saying that this is for the $9,000 to pay an architect to design it. I assume that we'll have some costs that go into the implementation of this. I just wasn't in favor of spending $9,000 to have somebody design a fence.
And I think one thing too to consider, I mean, we talk about semis and other businesses not really realize how much impact that closure might have on them. Maybe it is one of those deals where we do a temporary over a summer. There's not much business in the wintertime, but maybe doing just a temporary blockage to see what happens, because maybe after a couple of months be there, some of these business owners, us included even maybe, these semi drivers are having a hard time, or there might be other things that come up that we're not thinking of right now. So I think if you go and do a whole plan and then all of a sudden we got concerns down the road, I don't think that's the right way to do it neither. So just something that needs to be done, either, like I said, more signage or something to figure out for safety. On a side note, that parking lot on the one side, on the north side parking lot, I do think that needs a better light. You have, kids, teenagers, this is completely side note, just to bring to your attention. It's very dark back there. So if you have younger teenage girls or whatever coming back.
That sits right on 7th that you're
Yep.
talking about?
It is really dark. We do have a little light from our watering hole that's kind of more deflected down. So if you park right there, it's fine. But if you're in the back corners, just for, teenage, girls' safety and whatnot, I think coming back from Corn Palace games at 10:30 at night, I think there should be a light back there. So just letting you know, so. Otherwise, any questions you have for me?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. It'd be a Northwestern deal, huh?
I know we've talked about it, and I was just pulling up my files to see if, I know we've talked about this location. I thought one was approved. I don't know if has one been added yet?
I haven't been there at nighttime for a couple weeks, but I
Oh,
can
it's
actually
not.
look.
I'll look into that, because I know we've talked about it, and it's on Josh Harvey's radar, so.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Why don't we do a roll call on this one? Is that all right?
Dosher?
No.
McCardle?
No.
Barrington?
No.
Bathke?
No.
Charks?
No.
Smith?
No.
Sabers?
No.
Goldammer?
No.
Motion does not pass. Motion fails. Okay. There's a little bit of confusion. I just want to make sure everyone. Action to approve Resolution R 2024-69, creating a tax increment district number 38 for Palace City Brewery. Mr. Johnson.
All right, I'll give you the brief rundown here. This would relate to the Palace Brewery, location down just west of the depot. The ask for the grant amount on this one is $500,000. It's projected to generate a little bit more than that. Staff did complete a review. Just a couple things with this one is we did originally receive the application back in February for this. In the property owners dealing with the railroad, they were trying to relocate some of the boundaries and transfer some of the property to facilitate the overall project and access to the parcel. Eventually, or I guess recently, things with the railroad haven't been progressing as fast as they expected it to. So they came back and asked to proceed with the application using the property boundary as it currently sits and as it sat back in February when they initially completed submitted the application. So that's the boundary that you see in front of you on the screen. Staff did review the project plan. It does appear to meet all of the requirements of the TIF handbook and of the state statutes. The developer was told back in February that we would be considering the basically the status of the site and the work as of the time that the application was submitted. So there has been some work that was done since that time, but that was not taken into consideration as part of the TIF committee review based on the guidance that they were given at the time back in February. Other things to keep in mind, there will be no interest associated with the TIF. This is structured as a grant pass-through, just as our previous ones have been. It's 20 years, or once the increment is paid out, whichever occurs sooner. Developer will be waiving the discretionary formula and is required to certify costs on the project. Moving on from that, you do see the project cost breakdown provided within the project plan. They do show eligible expenses well above the $500,000 that they're requesting. As I said earlier, they show the projection of the increment generating just a little bit above the $500,000 that they're requesting. And then just a little bit of information about the project itself. Obviously, Palace City Brewer, they're opening a new brewery, adding new employees, things of that nature. They did restore a dilapidated building, demolished another dilapidated structure. We'll be rehabilitating the general area surrounding the property. So those are just some general information about the project.
The project also included the removal of a building that had been considered potentially a nuisance property in the
Correct.
past.
Yep. And I think that gives you the general rundown. I can open it up to any questions. Otherwise, I know we have representatives for the applicant here.
Justin, how would the TIF be affected positively, negatively, if the negotiations with the railroad makes a difference? What impact might that have?
At this point, it really shouldn't have any impact. My understanding, though, is that they're in the process of getting the signatures on their exchange agreement to have this occur, and that should be happening sometime this week. From what I've been told, they're both in agreement. They're just getting the signatures. They're dealing with the railroad in Texas, so that takes time to get those together. But as far as the TIF goes, that shouldn't really have any impact because we're basing it off of the way the property is set right now.
I think what they did is nothing short of amazing. They took an eyesore of a building. They tore one down. The building they've put up is a great addition to tourism, to Main Street, for eateries, for breweries. I know that, feel their pain for for what they had to go through with the railroad and how long it took. And, and I understand some of the stuff is done, but then I'll make a motion to approve this. I mean, look at the picture right there. It's just from what that was. I followed it from day one. And from what that was and what that looked for before they started, especially with I have no idea if that was brick or wood, the old white building that came down. But it's a very, very nice addition to Main Street. It goes right in with the depot. My grandkids, all they want to do is go to the depot and see the railroad when they were younger. It's just something, I think it's a great, great addition to Mitchell. And, so I'm going to make a motion to approve that.
We got a motion by Mr. Shavers to approve?
And I'll second.
Second by Mr. Goldhammer.
I did also want to let council know I did provide an update on the current TIFs for the city of Mitchell. That's included in the packet at the end of the report. We do have the 2 today, and we have one other potential one coming in, which will be TIF number 40 by the end of this. So I just want to make sure you saw the update.
And Stephanie, I just think it's always so impressive. And so maybe just for the public's information, do you want to just share how, what a positive impact those TIFs have had?
Sure. I didn't want to take more of your time, but yeah, the total increase to the taxable value of the Mitchell is over $97 million. When you look down and look at the, you can see as of December 31st, we've had $12 million of financing provided towards projects that resulted in that increase in assessed values. So, that's what TIFs are supposed to do, is they're supposed to grow the assessed value within the community and help businesses get started. Basically, they are being rebated back those taxes for the increased value within the city. And now that we are doing these as grant, you'll see when those switched over as you go through the list of, I don't know why this is taking so long, sorry. When you go through the list here, you'll see which ones now are switched over to grants. So when the total paid principal and interest, those are ones that are still against our debt. But when you get down to the newer ones, you'll see that those are now grants. As we get farther down to the newer ones, you can see they've all been grants. The other thing I wanted to let council know is we did send out, or I sent out all the TIF report requests to all the TIFs that have to send in their certified costs for the year, as well as the housing rental costs for the housing TIFs. And I've gotten, I think, all of those back now. I'm just waiting for one more rental report. So everybody's been really good about turning that information over and making sure that we're matched with what they put in the project plan as well.
And I'd just like to make 2 more comments. As I said, this was submitted back in February, and at that time, I don't think anybody was expecting this stuff to drag out until November. So I just wanted to point out that we were expecting the property boundaries and everything to be taken care of relatively quickly. And they had some time-sensitive projects going on at the time that they wanted to be able to continue with. So that's one of the reasons why they were given the guidance that they were at the time. And then I also wanted to point out that going forward, applicants are going to be getting told that the status of their project will be getting considered as of the time that council approves it, not as of at the time that they will be submitting their application. So I just wanted to clarify that too.
Right, I think it's important to recognize that there were some really unique and unusual circumstances around this one. So while it looks like, I don't know what I can assume what it might look like to the public, but I think that it's important to know that this is something that really, at the end of the day, is no different than any other TIF. It just was that we had to work around some other extenuating circumstances.
Okay, any further discussion from the council? It does look very nice. I've been in there halfway through and just recently. It does look beautiful in there. Anyone in the audience wish to speak on this one? Okay, all those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Action to approve resolution R 2024-70, creating tax increment district number 39, Mad Garage. Mr. Johnson.
All right, so as the mayor said, this would be a TIF district for Mad Garage. This project would be located basically on the corner of the bypass and Main Street Highway leading north out of town, kind of kitty corner from the old Shopco area. So this would be a new construction. Along with that, they're planning to expand the type of service that they can provide, as well as hire additional employees, I believe double what they're currently employing. So this one would be a TIF grant in the amount of $330,206, just a little bit different there. No interest attached, a 20-year TIF, which would again expire earliest of that 20 years happening or the $330,000 being paid out. This would also be a grant pass-through TIF. Developers also required to waive the discretionary formula and is also required to certify their cost to the city. Moving down to the project cost breakdown, again, you can see that they do have eligible expenses listed at the $330,206. And that the TIF is projected to generate approximately $357. So I think with that, we can probably open it up for questions or comments.
Justin, do you have any clue at their timetable to, assuming that this would get okayed, is there any, there we go.
Yeah, it's in there. I'll let the applicant speak to that, though.
Yeah.
You say your name real quick.
Oh, Spencer Mation. You were asking, what was the question again? Sorry.
Your timetable for construction and when you hope to be open and.
Hope to be in there by June, the latest, because we're kind of getting into winter now. So if the ground freezes, it's going to put a stop to a lot of things, but should be able to get the footings down hopefully by the end of the year.
Good luck.
Thanks.
I'll move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Goldhammer, second by Mr. Barrington. Any further discussion? Anyone in the audience wish to speak on this one?
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. My name is Steve Simpson, and I did read the project plans for both the one you just passed and this one that are under consideration. And I didn't speak on the previous one because that truly is an example of a blighted area that deserves a TIF. This particular one, though, it's not a blighted area, and if it's true that without the TIF, it is not economical feasible to run this project, we shouldn't be doing it. We have that letter from the city administrator to you regarding 32 TIFs from 1995 to 2024. And if we are, most all of those are projects where the cost is greater than the financial benefit, that's probably why Mitchell's not growing as fast as some people would like. And I made this argument before. The third argument I want to make is that I handed out a Brookings audit report about 2 months ago, and it explained how these city TIFs increase the tax levy on the school district's property owners. And so the property owners of this Mitchell School District is subsidizing economic projects that should not be done. And that's an example of how instead of us having the money to grow Mitchell, it is given to these projects. And that's why I argue that because of these TIFs, Mitchell is not growing as much as it could if we had organic, natural growth, or the people decided which businesses were winners and which ones were losers. Thank you.
Thank you. Is one of the, just to clarify, it doesn't have to be blighted, or is that just one of the conditions? I can't remember Okay, we got an expert here. Okay.
Well, thank you. Don Peterson, the attorney for the applicant. I'm not exactly sure where Steve's coming from on the landowners, local landowners being taxed, but it may
I think
be.
that's only if it's a local
Right, there's
TIF.
two types of TIFs. There's local TIFs, and then there's economic development and affordable housing TIFs. And so a local TIF would be one where it's neither economic development, it's not for affordable housing. And so because of that, they have a big heading for those, and they're just called local. And in a local TIF, the tax to the school district it has to be picked up within that specific area. So the city of Aberdeen does a lot of local TIFs. And as such, their taxpayers do get increased for the school portion. If it's an economic development TIF or affordable housing TIF, those get spread out over every taxpayer in South Dakota. And so when there's an economic development TIF in Sioux Falls, a Mitchell taxpayer school rate may go up or taxes may go up a penny, a half a cent, whatever it is, but they're spread out over every single property taxpayer in the state. So when Steve's talking about the levy going up for the Mitchell residents for school, in an economic development TIF, I don't think that that's the
No,
case.
and so the city council's current policy is that we do not support the local TIFs. And so one of the caveats that we put into every project plan is that if the Department of Revenue fails to certify the TIF as economic development or affordable housing, the TIF will immediately dissolve. And the difference in that tax is actually what the state calls it is they take it out of the rounding error statewide for taxes. So it doesn't, the economic development and the affordable housing does not increase the local levy.
I can tell you Stephanie and Justin run a tight ship on TIFs. And so
Yeah, and previously the city did have one or two, but those have all been paid off now. So ours are all now classified as economic development or affordable housing.
The blighted area, that's only one of the options, right? Is that? Or
Well, a blighted area is defined as any open area, and this is certainly open area, and it's going to be more costly to build there because you got the access issues and all those type of things, and so that's why the TIF is necessary, and without the TIF, the business is, it's not going to go forward, so that's. I don't think that the blight definition, I think it is met here.
And I will say, just from.
I just pulled it up. It says it has to meet one of the three.
Right.
And that's just one of the three. So it doesn't necessarily need to meet that
No, not
exact
every-
requirement.
you're right.
And from our committee's perspective, when we did the review as well, we want to see development encouraged all throughout town, not just the organic growth that's happening south of the interstate. We want to see some of the growth happening on this area of town as well. So for us to see someone making an investment on North Main, just like Cromer's, we think that's a good use of TIF dollars as well.
Right.
Can I ask Spencer, where will your access point be from, like, Main Street?
Yeah, so it'll be.
Will you come up to the podium?
Up so that you can.
So the people at home can hear you.
Only if they're on YouTube. Apparently Mitchell Telecom doesn't have audio, but YouTube does. So.
I haven't heard anything.
So access is going to be from 23rd Street to the north there because the DOT will not allow access from the roundabout, which in my opinion is actually a better thing, just because the trees are planted and the way you go in there, I mean, it's actually quite beautiful, to be honest. I don't know who planted the trees, but I guess if they're listening, thanks.
So you will have signage then along Highway, or along 23rd
Correct.
that will show this way to get
Correct. Yep. And to my knowledge, this is the last bare land on Main Street.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this is kind of it.
Cherry on top?
It's
Yeah.
very exciting. It's really going to change the landscape of that corner, but I'm excited for it. It looks like a beautiful building. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, and one of the other nice things that Spencer hasn't mentioned is that he's already got, assuming that he can get it built, he's already got some contracts with individuals outside the Mitchell area, the shopping area, to bring in implement stuff for work, and so that'll get more sales tax dollars into the city and more people into the city on the north side. No, you just got to bring in a couple of restaurants into the north side.
Maybe like a KFC.
Okay. Get a motion. Anyone else in the audience wish to speak on this one? on up.
Steve Simpson again. I would like to bring up a fifth point. If you read the Davison County audit report, as of 12/31/2022, due to the city TIS, the county was shorted $300,000. Okay, so that means that if the increments were included, then the levy would have dropped and the rest of us would have paid less county taxes. So one way or another, the taxpayers are bearing the cost. Now, if this particular project is truly economically feasible, in other words, it would go on without the TIF, then the county and the schools and everybody would have a higher tax base, and the rest of us would pay less tax. And so that's my concern. We do not know, the city council does not know if it's true that this is not economically feasible project without the TIF. We do not know that. You have numbers to prove that. You don't. You have to take their word for it. The private corporations and businesses have an advantage over you, people, the representative government that represents we the people. So you don't have enough information to really know for sure whether or not this is economically feasible or not. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the audience wish to speak on this?
You guys didn't get to.
You got to start sitting on the outside, Don.
You didn't get to hear me on the last TIF, so I'll double up. The response I would have to Steve's TIF is remember that if the TIF isn't approved and the business doesn't come, the county's not out any tax because it was never going to be here in the first place. So it's the same that it would have been. And with it, you're bringing 5 new jobs. You're putting maybe more children in the school district, which generates more. You're generating more sales tax. You're getting the excise tax on the construction work if it's in the community builder. So the advantage that's why TIFs are a good deal, because you're bringing in eventually. Susan asked Stephanie to put the numbers up of how much it's increased. The base in the city of Mitchell that TIFs have done. If that wasn't there, there'd be a heck of a lot less tax dollars here, so.
Thank you. Does anyone else in the audience wish to speak on this one before we vote? Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries, 1 abstention. Action to approve Resolution R 2024-71, plot of Lot B of Big Bend Addition as shown on the agenda. Mr. Jenigas.
Mr. Mayor and Council, Planning Commission recommended approval of this unanimously. This is outside city limits, outside the ETJ, but within 3 miles of the city limit, so therefore the county or city has to hear it as well. The county will hear it at their November meetings. They got pushed back a week because of something called the election tomorrow. I believe the intent is to be able to sell this as one piece of property. As you can see, it floods out quite a bit. And recently they had an issue with access to some land further to the south. So I'm thinking that they're probably going to sell some of the land or this chunk of land to that person. That's an assumption on my part. I have not talked with the owners of it, but that would make the most sense. I can answer any questions that you have.
Motion by Mr. McCardle.
Second.
Second by Mr. Goldhammer. Any further discussion? Anyone in the audience want to speak on this one? Just one. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Action to approve Resolution R 2024-72, plot as shown on the agenda. Mr. Jenigas.
Mr. Mayor and Council, Planning Commission recommended approval of this unanimously. This is in the ETJ, so it's city zoning jurisdiction. It meets the requirements for in urban development for the size lot. They'll be putting another residence on this lot. I can answer any questions that you have.
Move to approve.
Motion by Mr. Goldhammer.
Second.
Second by Mrs. Church. Any further discussion? Anyone in the audience want to speak on this? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Action to approve Resolution R 2024-73, plot as shown on the agenda. Mr. Jenigas.
Mr. Mayor and Council, Planning Commission recommended approval of this unanimously. This is out in the Commerce Park area. It's following along with their plan out in the area, as well as the drainage that's been done for the study out there. They are going to do a full site plan and breakdown for the city per Public Works request. I can answer any questions that you may have, or if you have any more questions on that, Joe can answer that.
Move to approve.
Motion by Mr. Goldhammer, second by Mr. McCardle. Any further discussion? Anyone in the audience want to speak on this? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Action to approve Resolution R 2024-74 plot as shown on the agenda. Mr. Jenniges.
Mr. Mayor and Council, Planning Commission recommended approval of this. This is just outside city limits within the ETJ, City of Mitchell zoning jurisdiction. They are platting out this piece of property to sell the dwelling to one of their children. We did reach out to DOT to ask them if they wanted to be on the signature line for this because East First Avenue is actually Highway 38P, but they felt that the location of it would not be theirs to sign. I can answer any questions that you have for me on this.
Move to approve.
Motion by Mr. Smith. Second by Mrs. Charks. Any further discussion? Anyone in the audience wish to speak on this? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Hearing and second reading on ordinance O 2024-10, rezoning as shown on the agenda. Mr. Jenniges.
Mr. Mayor, Council, there were two new letters that were included in your packet this time in favor of this. As you recall, the applicant would like to build a new building on their property to hopefully get rid of some of their trailers, do cold storage for that area. This lot's been rezoned, or this block's been rezoned a lot of different times. Applicant is not able to make it tonight. He called with a conflict and apologizes for not being able to be here tonight. I can answer any questions that you have.
Move to approve.
Motion by Mr. Goldhammer. Second by Mr. McCardle. Any further discussion? Anyone in the audience wish to speak on this? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Motion to adopt ordinance O 2024-10.
Move to adopt.
Second.
We got a motion and a second. Any public commentary on this? Okay, roll call.
Charts.
Aye.
Smith.
Aye.
Sabers. Goldammer.
Aye.
Dosher. McCardle. Barrington. Bathke.
Motion carries. First reading on ordinance O 2024-11, 2025 annual appropriation ordinance.
Mayor and council, included in the packet is the annual appropriation ordinance as last discussed at the last budget work session. I did provide just a real highlight overview as well as my full narrative overview on both just the general budget and the capital improvements. But I think these were really kind of some highlights, I guess, for the general public that might be watching. So that first page is a good summary. I also did update the presentation that we went through at the beginning of the budget hearings. The second reading and adoption is scheduled for November 18th. This had to be adjusted just slightly because we did increase our revenue during budget hearings, but you can see our total revenue is projected to increase about 7%, which is $1.5 million. Property tax is 27% of the total revenue and 33% of the tax revenue combined. Sales tax is 55% of the total revenue and 67% of the tax revenue combined. So you can see the property tax increase for CPI plus growth. So the total property tax increase is 4.59% or $295,000. And then what we have projected for the sales tax increase. This just shows you some differences from comparing 2024 budget to 2025 proposed revenue fund budgets. These are expenditures, so you can see the changes. When you see the lake budget being really huge, that's because we have the remainder of the lake dredge project being budgeted in 2025. So that is funded by the SRF loan that the city would be pursuing for that project. Enterprise budgets, we continue to do a lot of infrastructure projects in our enterprise funds, so those continue to move forward. And our expenditure budget. So the main changes here, you can look, we had some major sewer projects that were budgeted in 2024, so now we're moving into more of a normal time frame. So when you see that huge change from last year to this year, that's the reason why for that one. General fund, you can see it's not much of a change from last year to this year. Transfers out from general fund, the only major change here is that the city council had designated $4.6 million to be used towards the lake project, and that is coming out of reserve restricted funds, so that's shown as a transfer out. And then our transfer to park is increasing another $805,000 last year, or this year. Last year, we also went up, so this year's another increase on top of the last year's increase. And then you can see our cash applied for the different funds. Again, the 4.684 is coming out of designated reserves for the lake project. The rest are really going towards either capital projects or operations out of their fund balance. And our projected reserve balance. We're still with this reserve, of course, we'll know where we are after, that might change depending on what happens with sales tax tomorrow. So we'll know where we are better at the end of the year. But right now, it would show that our cash balance would be about 59% of the 2025 revenue. Again, to restate council's previous goal is to be at between 30 to 35%. The 2025 budget does not include any employee changes, so we're staying at a flat number of employees from 2024. Capital improvements, you can see those by fund. The total proposed capital improvements are $36.4 million. $7.7 million of those are coming out of enterprise funds. So those are funded by user fees that we charge to those funds. And then here you can see the majority of our capital projects are really coming in facility improvements this year. That's largely because I have the lake in there. So if you took the lake out, you would see the majority of the infrastructure improvements are really the higher cost. But when you take the 21.5 out of the facility, it goes down to a more normal number that we would typically see. This is just a list showing our capital projects over $300,000. The only thing that changed from the budget hearings here is we took out those LED light improvements. We're going to just do the design of those instead, so those are removed off. Nothing else on this list has changed. And then you can read through the full capital projects, and there's more detail on these in the narrative overview as well. This is the infrastructure projects we do. It's usually the largest amount of funding that we have committed as to infrastructure. Whoops. Sorry. Facility improvements, just go off the side of the line, sorry about that. But again, if we didn't have the Lake Mitchell project on there at $21.5 million, that'd be closer to $3 million, which is closer to our normal for facility improvements. And equipment. We do receive quite a bit of grants from outside sources. I like to make sure that we point that out. Out of the infrastructure projects, we have $21.1 million coming in from the SRF loan. Oh, actually, that's all coming in from Lake Mitchell, that's right. And then we have STIP funding, that's our money that we get for road maintenance and improvements. Restricted fund reserves, we have some reserves being used. Oh, you'll see them right there. Lake Mitchell Dredge Project, the Jetty Project. We have the Corn Palace Plaza expansion. We had received $100,000 dedicated towards that cost. And then the Park and Rec Department had some remaining funds out of a donation that they received, so they're applying the rest of that donation towards those improvements shown under there. And then grants. We have a lot of grants coming in for the airport, as well as we're going to be applying for another playground equipment grant. And then the community services building gets grants to support their operations as well. You'll see, oh, look at that. Isn't that funny? I didn't put the dollar amount on there when I did this update, but it is $200,000 that we have included in the budget next year for the design. We will be evaluating the difference between the wood light poles versus the metal poles. We do have the money included in the budget when we did the changes that we will do the inspection of the existing wood poles, so we won't be replacing them unless they need to be. It'll also help us identify which ones are our priority and prepare for going after the grant that is possible for the youth sporting ones that we can go after. And then after the last work session, we received $1 million in applications for subsidies. Last year's level was at $630,000. Council has given tentative approval for $710,500, with final approval coming towards the end of the year. So, which they can't take any funds out before next year anyway, so you'll be able to get that final approval. I did provide just a comparison of how those have changed from green would be the 2024 application, or 2024 funding. Yellow is the 2025 application, and red is what was actually approved. And then, like I said, that was just a short overview. Yep, I know. I'm trying to close it, sorry. We have a more, like I said, I have kind of this highlight page that I just created for everybody. So if the general public wanted to see some major, or the big highlight overview, they could look here. We also have a full budget narrative that goes over the changes by fund, whether it's revenue or expenditures, capital improvements, our map of our overlay projects for next year, a full listing of all the capital improvements. If anyone wants to look that deep into it and see which ones are being funded by grants, they certainly could. And then the fund overview, and I know council likes to see this one to kind of see how we went through the process, so you can see how those funds were cut in order to present a structurally balanced budget at this point. And I can answer any questions that you have. I know you guys have probably talked this to death, so I just wanted to make sure I gave an overview for anyone who might be watching who didn't see the hearings.
Yeah, so Stephanie, you suggested that we earmark $6 million to cover the potential loss of revenue with IM28. How do we do that? Is that something you want to have happen tonight, or do you want to wait?
No, it doesn't have to happen tonight. We will have another reading on this ordinance, and by then we'll know the outcome of that election. At that time, we can just list that on the agenda if council would like to designate that for whether it's loss of sales tax revenue or another future project. You
We're
can do it
meeting
at that
next
time.
Tuesday at 5:30, correct?
Yep. If you still want to do that, yes. That's my understanding, yes.
Yeah, that's what I have on my schedule.
And just to be clear, though, if IM28 fails, no designation needs to happen. So if I was a general public who hadn't heard any of the subsidy requests, I'd consider voting no on IM28.
If you haven't already.
If you haven't already.
I still think it'd be good to meet, though, because then we're still going to have some decisions on what the final budget will look like, regardless if it passes or not.
So my suggestion to council is going to be, it's going to be pretty complicated to make those changes last minute now. We can still set aside a work session for you to make changes for the 2025 budget that we supplement in 25 with those funds that were either earmarked or not included into the budget. But otherwise, we're going to have to make those changes on the fly during the hearing. And I think it would give you a better opportunity of seeing your options if you had more time to dig into it a little bit more. And we can still make the changes to the budget, if that's making sense.
But you're still saying meet on Tuesday to do that?
That's up to you guys. I know for certain if I thought what I heard from you is that we were going to meet to make cuts if it passes. If it fails, you can take your time to have that discussion about what you want to do with what we left out of the budget. But if I'm wrong, please correct me.
Sounds very simple, cut and dry.
I was thinking we were meeting next Tuesday regardless, but I guess I could be wrong. I was here at 5:30 too, so don't ask me when we're meeting.
I'd say if it fails, if it passes, we definitely should meet, don't you?
If it passes, we meet, correct. Yeah.
How much time do we have if it fails?
Well, really,
There is a chance that we don't have all the answers by
that's my,
next Tuesday as well. And so
When's the latest
we
you
might be
can do an
meeting to
addendum?
talk about how we don't know what we need to do and how much we need to cut.
I will say, we sat in on the Marty Jackley explanation, and he said that he believes that the original intent was for groceries, and that is the stance he would take in moving forward. So the big $6 million number is probably not as, what's the word I'm looking for, as likely, because the original intent was that, and he will follow the original intent.
But he said it would be up to the legislature
It
or
would-
the courts to declare
Yes,
that. It's
yep.
not up to him. He said he wouldn't be the one doing
won't
that
happen fast.
unless no one else took action. Yeah. So.
I'm just communicating, right?
That is what he said during the meeting. He said if it was up to him, but he said he doesn't want it to be up to him. He said it's going to have to play out in the legislature and in the courts to determine what the outcome is going to be.
Yeah, he also said that he has out of all the things, his is on the bottom, and it doesn't really matter what he says, so.
So I guess it's up to council. If you'd still like to meet next week, we can either way. Yeah, it's up to you guys.
Why don't we just leave it on our schedules? And then at the end of the week, you can send out another invite.
We can always cancel.
And we can always cancel.
I just have to have it published by Friday. Yeah.
Just send out an email Thursday.
Move to put on first reading then?
Yeah, absolutely. Got a motion by Mr. Goldhammer and a second by Mr. Barrington. Any further discussion?
I just want to make another quick comment. I know we say this quite a bit, but it's worth repeating. You know, the amount of hours that the mayor and Stephanie and Justin, the department heads, all of them, the hours that you guys put into this sure makes our decisions a whole lot easier. So really do appreciate. I know it's not fun, and obviously for the mayor it was the very first time, so I'm sure you spend even more hours.
I think Stephanie has a lot of fun putting this together. She loves spreadsheets.
She's a numbers person. But anyway, it really is nice that you guys come with a pretty solid budget, and then we just fine tune it and tweak it. So very much appreciated.
Not that we've been here long, but 2006 now, wow.
I like to say that it lets you focus on what the real priorities and the direction are for the city moving forward, because you don't have to spend as much time on the minute details. That you get to have the big conversations, which is what we all elect you to do. What direction is the city going in? So. It's not fun, by the way.
Okay, does anyone in the audience wish to speak on this before we vote on this? Okay. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries, and we are adjourned.
Chad, you want to?